Question number 2, part A, we are going to attempt that explain 2 ways the research might be affected by how it is funded. So marking scheme, I wrote on the top of the page that 4 marks for each explanation mean you have to give me 2 ways. So for each explanation, let's understand the first. You have to identify first, then you explain, then supporting sociological material and connecting material to the points. 1 marks you will get identify the way. 1 mark you would explain your identification. 1 mark use the sociological material. And 1 marks conclude it. What does it mean conclude it? Conclude it that whatever the identification, whatever the explanation, whatever the supportive arguments you provide, how these things related to your question. And question was that how research might be affected by how it is funded. This is a little technical question. You just have to answer me that how research affected by the funding process. Now keep that in mind. This is the process for your 1 way, and the 2nd way the process will remain same. Now keep that in mind. Let's try to attempt the question number 2nd, part A. And question, we have explained 2 ways the research might be affected by how it is funded. So one identification that we can write over here is, let's say, methodological constraint. Methodological constraints. Now what does it mean? The amount of funding can be dictate. Now I am going to explain it. The amount of funding can be dictate the scale and the method of research. Can be dictate the method of research. For example, now I have explained it. I will try to use the sociological material in my examples and further proceed with my questions. So for example, a research project with limited funding might rely on cheaper methods, like, now see, I am using the sociological material like surveys, or you can say the secondary data, rather than costly methods like longitudinal studies. Okay, now this financial constraint can limit the depth of the study. So you might say, I'm just concluding it. Okay, this is the last line, I'm concluding it. Now whatever the explanation I gave it to you, I will connect it with my questions. And what was the question? That how it is funded. So what I am saying, that this financial constraint, this financial constraint can limit the scope and depth of the study. And the depth of the study. Come on to second way. And second way we have, let's say, influence of the funder interest. Influence of the funder interest. The interest and requirements, the interest and requirement of the funding body, can shape research, focus and method, Now again, for example, a government funded study might focus on quantitative methods, to produce measurable, generalizable, results that align with policy goals, Now I am concluding it, that limit the exploration of nuanced, or you can say the qualitative aspects of social phenomena. As this question basically carries, just keep in mind, this question basically carries 8 marks. So what I did, very straightforward, I identify one method, I'm able to get 1 marks. What I did, I wrote that question in 3 different lines. Okay, 3 different lines. One line related to explanation. If you see that, okay, just see the marking scheme what I did over here. First I identify, second I explain that the amount of funding can be dictate the method of the research. Fine enough. Then I use the sociological material to justify my argument, supportive sociological material. Let's say, for example, a project with limited funding might rely on the cheaper method, like, now this is proper terminologies I am using, surveys, country data, rather than the costly like longitudinal studies. Now I am just concluding it. This financial constraint can limit the scope and the depth of the study. So this is how you have to respond that particular question. Question number 2, part A, for the 8 marks questions. This is the format of your particular question.